Hello, and welcome to something slightly different but not different at all. We are trying a new method, as always, to try and capture some gameplay. I'm not actually in the same room as Martin, but because of the miracle of 2015 and the internet and the tools of modern man, we're able to somehow collaborate and create a transformative art piece.
Truly does feel like living in 2015, finally.
It's so wanky that there's actually a lot of people on YouTube that call their gaming videos transformative pieces.
Really?
Yeah. How wanky is that?
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's their way of justifying it, because you know how people are like, you know how when games companies do copyright claims and stuff.
Yeah.
That's like their comeback is like, oh, this is a piece of
right.
transformative art. You can't.
A fair use
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
It's
that's
bullshit.
a clause. That's a clause in I think American fair use law that lets you, I don't know,
away with
transformative
it.
use. Yeah, it's a thing. It is a
Anywho,
thing, but...
would you like to introduce the people to what we're doing?
Okay, so we're gonna do, I guess, is it a review, Calum, or are we just doing a playthrough? Or?
Well, we might do a playthrough depending on how it goes. I've completed this, but you're kind of going in to this particular version into perhaps the dark. You going in the dark in this one?
I have actually played this a little bit. It's a port onto the Game Boy Color of a game that was released on the PS1, Dreamcast, and also the PS2 in Europe, I believe, only. But unlike a lot of those games that were, released as ports onto the Game Boy, it wasn't a completely different version of the game. It stays strangely faithful even down to the...
It tries its best. I think the console versions, like the original version of Alone in the Dark, had two characters. This has only got one, but this came out in 2001, and I think the Game Boy Advance came out in 2001, so we're talking like very much at the end of the product cycle of the Game Boy Color, so it's probably one of the...
I remember seeing this in Electronics Boutique, I think it was, which was going to age me. When it first came out, and when I picked up,
I actually went and found this in my little Game Boy bag that's from Electronics Boutique. So
your little Game Boy bag, eh?
Yeah. Don't read into
it. So, I picked it up, and initially I thought it was a Game Boy Advance game. When I looked at the back of the I was looking at the front Game Boy Color, looking at the back, and it just looked like a Game Boy Advance game. So, it really is a miracle of cramming something that should not be crammed into a Game Boy.
Absolutely. It's pretty interesting that they tried to do it. It's the same as that Resident Evil. There's like a full version of Resident Evil on the Game Boy Color as well. We spoke about it before. It's exactly the same kind of principle, but I think we've lingered on this long enough. I am playing it on the GameCube, on the Game Boy player, which, believe it or not, is actually a Game Boy Advance inside an add-on for the GameCube. It just hasn't got the screen and stuff.
It's like the Super Game Boy, remember that?
Same idea. So let's get fired in. Now, it's whatever is still on it. Oh, fuck's sake. Right, this is a good start. Someone a long time ago lent the GameCube to them, and they broke the open and close button on it, and ever since then, you actually kind of have to spin the disc when you start it up. Kind of feels like being a crap DJ.
Cranking up a car or something like that.
It's very much the same thing. So as you can see, we've got a lovely kind of space pattern around the sides, which you can actually change, but we'll stay with it for that now.
That was your desktop.
Yeah, that's right. A classic 90s space faring thing. Now, I have to admit, for the most part, the music is crap in this game, because they've tried to push themselves to get something slightly more than it's capable of, Oh.
Yeah, they've crammed it full of... I think this is almost to the bit the biggest cartridge released on the Game Boy Color. I think it pretty much takes the maximum space that it was possible to take on.
I can understand why. Right, we'll need to pretend to be American.
Okay.
We're going in. Right. I'll start a new one, because I'm pretty sure I've actually got a complete one on it, so I should probably save it. There we go.
Straight in. Narrate it now, Calum.
You can narrate it. You've got a better narrating voice.
Ring, ring. Ring, ring. Yeah, okay.
Alright, I better Sorry, I was getting too invested in what you were doing.
I'm not going to narrate this. I'm not going to do voices.
Oh, go on.
No. Hello, Edward Carnaby speaking.
Right, next.
Mr. Carnaby, my name's Aline Cedrak. I'm an archaeologist. It's about your partner,
Comma.
Charles Fiske.
I like that they couldn't have tried to have just got the font a little bit smaller and got it on one page. There's a little bit of tension as it goes across, but like, this is a horrible transition where you cut between it. Stand by. Oh, no, oh wait, not yet then.
Is Charles working on a case for you, Miss Cedrak? Yes, he was, Charles. He's dead. Sorry, Charles is dead, Mr. Carnaby. Murdered. I think I'm changing voices.
What dramatic tension.
Yes, she's turned into a man now. But he's what? How?
It's the anemic brother of Barry Burton.
He went to a place called Shadowell. Well, that
immediately you're fucked.
To recover a stolen statuette, but never made it back. Tell me how to get to Shadow Island. If I find out who killed him... Oh, sorry. I'll find out who killed him. I have a seaplane that can get you to the island in just a few hours.
Oh, I think we're about to have another horrible white transition. There we go.
Beautiful. Have you ever heard of the Abcanis Indians? No, I don't think so.
This is good chat.
Yep, it is. This is painful. I've spent my career uncovering the dark secrets of this lost tribe. They practiced mystic rituals involving the stolen statuette, believing it had great power. I believe they were correct, and so does one other person. And who would that be? Morton. Alan Morton, the multi-millionaire recluse. The man who had Charles Fiske murdered. Well, if she knew who killed him, what is he even doing there?
She can't prove it. The police won't just believe. The police won't just believe some kind of mumbo jumbo statue stuff. We've got to go in and investigate this, Martin. We need evidence.
Okay. You're sure this man Morton is responsible? I'm positive.
There you go. And that is ironclad. That'll hold up in court.
Is that Carnaby? Oh, yeah, it's Carnaby.
Yeah.
I'll recover the statuette and pray Morton tries to stop me. But it'll save me the trouble of having to hunt him down. If I'm right about the statuette, we're in grave danger while we're here. You'd better stay with the plane then. We may need to get out of here in a hurry. I'll work on translating these Abancus tablets that were found with the statuette. If I find out anything useful, I'll contact you via walkie-talkie.
And there we go. We're now. Oh, fuck, she's immediately in.
Carnaby, are you receiving me? I wanted to make sure the walkie-talkie is working. When you see the walkie-talkie icon flashing on screen, go to the inventory, select the walkie-talkie, and use it to talk to me. Okay, I'll remember that.
Why is it Australian now? Keep some consistency, Jesus.
Tell me if you learn anything from the Abancus tablets. What screen are you talking about? I don't see a screen.
Right. So it's a little bit strange in terms of how it controls. There you go. It's alright, you don't need to narrate everything.
I was just performing the role of the cutscene.
Yeah, I didn't want to hear any more of your Australian.
No.
Right. So yeah, basically...
Sorry, go on.
No, you go on.
It's interesting because they've obviously... It is pretty incredible, the graphics for a Game Boy game. I mean, it doesn't look amazing today.
Yeah.
Really, but back then, compared to everything else in the Game Boy Color, you know, like the early Pokemon games and like Mario games, an 8-bit console, basically. You know, equivalent roughly in power to the first Nintendo system.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, really.
Can I point out the spooky eyes?
Yeah, look at the size of them, though. They're like the size of his torso.
They don't scale based on your distance, so...
Oh. Now, they've managed to do this because, like Resident Evil, the game uses pre-rendered backgrounds, so it's just an image that your character scrolls across. So and it's really well done, but the Game Boy Color, I believe, has only 40 colours. It's only capable of showing 40 colours.
I think you're about right, which I think is more than the NES. Right here, we've got some combat. This is by far the weakest part of the game.
Yeah.
Now this is probably what people are more familiar with when they think.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Spiders. Yeah. Oh, I didn't get a chance to pick that up. Shit.
What they've actually done. See, if you look at the graphics, it's really kind of quite glitchy and speckly, and that's because they've used like color dithering to try and emulate having more than 40 colors on the screen. Yeah. But on the original, basically they just pixelate like a couple of colors together to make it look like more. But in the original Game Boy Color, when you're playing it, obviously it wasn't backlit and it was a small screen, so you wouldn't really have seen that, and it would have looked probably even better on the Game Boy.
It looks a bit like petrol, actually, to be honest. Half of the textures in this.
Yeah.
Fuck you. But yeah, you know what, it pulls you out of it, and I think that they've obviously thought that, you know, the combat worked more on like the PlayStation version, for example, because there's that walkie-talkie blinking, but I can't be fucked getting into the. Shall I just do
it? I don't want to have to do her voice.
Let's advance the plot. It's blinking though, isn't it?
Come on, then. Yeah, it's blinking. Must be one of those two buttons, Calum.
Yeah, hang on. Oh.
God. Sorry, I was going to do the voice again.
I think someone's moving around near the aircraft. It's probably just a raccoon. Brilliant. Oh dear. Cut off.
Darn.
Well, so, it's only a raccoon, so she's fine.
So according to the Wikipedia, Carnaby's character that you're controlling and walking about here is actually a primitive 3D model. Now, looking at it, I would have said that he's a sprite because the way he scales as he goes off into the distance is really weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said he was 3D, but
I guess it could be because
a 3D character walking on like a 2D background, I guess.
Yeah, but you know, like it's it could just be, you know, shitty animation because there's not like a lot of processing power. Maybe that's why it looks weird. But it wouldn't be the first 3D graphics in an 8-bit console, though, would it? Like, because you got Elite on the NES, which has 3D. Well, it's wireframe, but it's got 3D graphics. There was a Game Boy, original Game Boy tech demo of Elite, which also had 3D graphics. But I know there's a few Game Boy.
Oh, look, the window!
Oh, something actually moved there in the
something did walk across. Yeah.
The thing about this game, though, is that it's not scary, and that's a cardinal sin for like a survival horror game, because you know nothing's going to attack you while you're walking around in this pre-rendered environment.
Well, it's kind of the limitations of the.
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of the thing, because I mean the game, in a way, it's kind of like more of a great tech demo than a great game, because it makes a lot of compromises, I think, to kind of achieve the look of the PlayStation version at the expense of having smooth gameplay.
I'm sure there was something in there. Weirdly, the sound seems to have gone.
I think there isn't a lot of sound while you're just wandering around.
No, but there's definitely always atmospheric stuff, and it seems to have gone rogue. Talk amongst yourselves.
But the thing, I guess, is with the action sequences, cutting away to a different screen really, really breaks the game almost, because that's the whole thing about these games, is that something could jump out any moment, but then you get that white flash to white anytime you encounter anything, and then you move into a different
you're right. I mean, it is very much pushing the console to its limits, and it's not. Oh fuck! See, this is the thing as well, because of the kind of slight nature of the background. A little bit the same you get with Resident Evil. You sometimes get yourself. Look at the fucking size of that. I'm pretty sure that's a key from memory. Yeah, it's massive as well.
The little twinkle I thought was the object. I didn't realise that the huge sort of grey thing was actually supposed to be an item. I thought it was just a bit of shading on the ground.
It was as well. Hang on 2 seconds, I'm going to try and fix this. 2 seconds. Right, it's back.
Cool.
Okay, I have no idea what was happening. You've missed nothing but kind of shite incidental sounds anyway, and the occasional hoot of an owl. Now, I'm pretty sure this doorway isn't acceptable yet.
I know that the sounds are pretty sparse because there wasn't much room after all the graphics. I don't know what the capacity of a Game Boy Color cartridge was, but it can't have been very big.
Well, it's definitely in the kilobytes, and it's definitely below about 300, I think. So it's probably about 200 or so, Which is, I mean, if you think about it now, like, what is Grand Theft Auto 5? It's like 60 gigabytes or something.
It's something insane, yeah.
And you just think it's amazing how much things are scaled. Right, I'm
but
pretty sure
if that is, I mean, actually, you know, looking at the character there, I wonder
there you go.
Maybe. Oh, nice.
Gardening gloves and
a crowbar. Is this going to turn into
So essentially, what we do is we put the gloves on, take the crowbar, go back, beat that woman, take her money, fly the plane away, and we won. Just do a Jack Torrance.
But I wonder, you know, how it cuts away to that different screen when you encounter combat. I think maybe that does kind of show that he is a 3D character. Like it can't handle more than one.
Oh, a character on the screen. Yeah, that would make sense. I think from memory you have to use the crowbar on this. I remember the start of the game, but that's about there. You go. There we go. Boom, and we're in. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that's actually pretty similar to the what do you call it? The first the entrance to the first mansion in the original. Oh, there we go. We're going up some stairs.
Have you played the original Alone in the Dark?
It's been many years, but I've played a bit of it. But going back to it, I can't. It's not aged well. How do I get this?
It has. Carnaby's a lot more of a pretty boy in this than he was in that. Basically, in the first, I would say it goes far to say it was probably one of the first survival horror games. Would you agree?
Oh, without a doubt, it's pretty influential in things.
First game really that used what we would now think of as the sort of Resident Evil format, isn't it? Walking around in pre-rendered backgrounds, 3D character, limited combat.
What's interesting?
And it's the character's head is the main thing I remember. In the original game was just like a circle, it was just a sphere. His head was basically a sphere with like a big polygon mustache on it.
Yes, it's pretty. Actually, the graphics are more hilarious than anything else.
Yeah, the original one. But there's some cool stuff like the killer clown dolls and stuff are pretty creepy.
Was that not the second game?
Might have been, but they all used the same engine and the same. There was like Alone in the Dark 1 and 2, and then I think this was the third Alone in the Dark game, but it came quite a few years after.
No, there was 3 Alone in the Dark games, and there was this because there's the Wild West one, which is the third one. There's the second one, which is the kind of gangster one, and then there's the original one just in the mansion.
Right. That's right. I remember the Wild West one, Slaughter Gulch or something like that. I can't remember. I think
you're right, but it was it not like a film set or something?
I honestly can't remember. I have to admit I had it on a disc full of pirate games that I bought from the Barras in Glasgow when I was a teenager.
Nice.
So I'm just gonna wait the knock at the door now that I've admitted that.
They're gonna come straight round. Here you've got some PlayStation 1 games. You're looking at hard time.
No, they weren't PlayStation 1. They were.
Fuck me, they were.
They were on. This is the thing, though. This is back in the day. You know what we're talking about? How much you can fit onto a disc or onto. I mean, how big these games were, how small they were when it comes to storage. This was a CD, not a DVD, a CD, and it had something like 200 or 300 full games on it. It had like all the Dooms. It had Quake. It had the original Alone in the Dark games.
They used to sell you arcade games like that as well. You know, you used to be able to buy the entire disc full of stuff for MAME.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you know what? As we've talked about, for fuck's sake, see what I mean? The combat just becomes tiresome in this. It just kind of gets in your way, but it's obviously their way of like keeping it from getting.
I mean, you can. The controls look really difficult.
They're very tankish. I mean, they make Resident Evil look like a fucking, I don't know, well handling sports vehicle in comparison to a milk float.
Do you think they would have been better?
Down to one bullet.
Making the whole game. Do you think they'd have been better making the whole game like that and just doing it better?
Oh, by far.
Than doing this. I mean, this has this.
See, I've literally walked about 2 feet. I've got one bullet, and I think it might be game over when you're out of bullets.
No, you're out of bullets.
Oh. Yep, it is.
Or he's having a nice rest.
I forgot about that.
Get his flat square shoes.
I know, what a pile of nonsense. So that's that. I actually, hang on, out of interest.
You think you might have a save game somewhere?
I do indeed, there we go.
Oh. He's alive. That's a fucking spoiler, Calum.
He's his spirit.
Right.
That's it.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
Let's see what we've got here. Look, I've got all the gear, including including an ugly statue.
So there's all that space there, like that kind of rectangle, but the items scroll across the bottom, and most of them are hidden, even though there's all that space above where you could have like a proper inventory.
Yeah, they've done it that way. Do you know what? It probably doesn't help that I don't actually know where I'm going, obviously, because I've just come into this. Hang on, is this open?
The animation for moving from one area to another, if you do it too much, I mean, I can imagine that would give an epileptic person a fit.
Yeah, no shit.
Because when you stand on the threshold between two areas and just move slightly
it constantly
forward,
does
it just flickers.
See, there's a door there. Is that accessible? No. I don't really know where I'm meant to be going because this is making for some great viewing. Now, you would think you'd be able to go down there, but look, his feet are actually on top of what I assume is an archway.
That's the ceiling his feet are on top of. Come on, we're slagging it off, but they did an amazing job.
It is very impressive for the time, but I remember I definitely completed it, but I don't ever remember it being a particularly great game. And like I said, I think it's just kind of sullied by the combat, because I think they thought no one would buy it if it didn't have, you know.
And you need some sort of combat. You need something to jump out, but it would have been better if they'd had other sprites coming out and attacking you in the actual pre-rendered environment. But
I'm
obviously,
entirely sure where I'm meant to be. I think I've got myself stuck. I don't really know where I'm heading. I can't go that way.
It's like you walk off the edge of the screen and then you're facing the wrong direction. It's like it sort of breaks the line a little bit.
It's so really disorientating. It's unreal because so many of the corridors are the same and stuff as well. It doesn't help. I remember this is the start of the game because you get the shotgun in that cabinet.
This is the other thing though, because there's no sense of satisfaction as you're shooting things, because suddenly you're in this little
little window.
Yeah.
Oh well, we would call it a wrap there. I think it's possibly something that merits going back to and playing through at one point.
It's a curiosity. It's a curiosity.
It certainly is, but I forgot about the fact that you die when you lose bullets. It came flooding back to me. I've been very frustrated about it.
Can you walk the character right up to the camera and see if he looks 3D?
No. Depending on the environment, I guess. It isn't. It's wise to your game, Martin. I think have I been this way before? Oh fuck! I'm getting very, very confused.
See some of these environments do look really nice.
It's pretty impressive for what it is. Oh, but I seem to remember that the final bit of the game's actually underground. So I think just walking about the mansion.
That's right, because the monsters, they're like underground creatures, aren't they? They're not.
Well, is it not Lovecraft inspired from memory?
Most things are these days, I think. But yeah, I think it probably is. I think they're supposed to be creatures that live in like the dark abyss under the earth or something like that. But they live in a cave system. And they come to the surface on this island. Because I played it on the PlayStation years
summoned?
ago.
Oh, this is different. But then they kind of do these over-the-top ones, which I'm pretty sure were in the original game as well. It's kind of give the place a sense of scale, but I'm kind of slightly confused as to how I've managed to walk around for so long without being ambushed by a bunch of stupid wee...
It has a kind of pointless little...
Oh, sorry. Obviously that room didn't hold his attention quite enough. But that's, like... I think the only way I seem to remember being able to do it before is you have to know it like the back of your hand, because a lot of it doesn't, because of the fact it's so low res and stuff, very little of it actually stands out.
Again, it seems like the sort of game that something that you would want to play immediately after playing the proper game, and you'd be able to find your way through it. But it doesn't seem very good. It seems like a great tribute to a proper game, but not a game in its own right. Almost,
I think
it's like a slideshow.
It's funny that kind of the technical limitations of it kind of stop it. See, look, now I'm caught in a loop. I don't actually know where the fuck to go.
I think you need to go up the stairs. Do you know?
The stairs isn't where I came from. I came from this direction.
You came to the bottom of the screen.
There we go. That's where it came from.
Okay, I was talking shite then.
Anyway, this is incredibly tedious viewing. I'm probably sure.
Is it an incredibly tedious game?
The combat is, but the actual game is kind of relatively enjoyable enough.
I can imagine, in when did this come out? 2001. Was it 2001?
2001, yep, because that's when the Game Boy Advance came out.
If you're a kid in 2001 and you're going away on holiday and you've got this game on your Game Boy Color, it would have been pretty awesome to have that.
Oh, do you know? If anything, actually, the Game Boy Color itself doesn't do justice to it. Like on the tiny wee screen, it doesn't work particularly well. I found.
Well, I would have thought that on the tiny Game Boy Color screen, a lot of the kind of issues wouldn't have been as visible, like the dithering kind of artifacts and stuff would have been. And obviously, it's not a backlit screen, so it wouldn't be kind of, it's kind of oversaturated and too bright on.
The biggest thing you forget as well is the fact that there wasn't any.
Stop! See the skull. See the skull outline? That's quite cool. The artwork. See in the background, the tunnel curves around, right? And there's a kind of outline of an eye and mouth and teeth down the kind of right hand side of the far wall. So it's like in the shape of a skull.
Kind of. I think you're giving them more credit, Martin, than the
I think that's deliberate. I think it's deliberate. Is this me looking at clouds and finding like giraffes? Is it?
I think that's unfortunately probably the case. Oh well, that didn't seem to fit upstairs. Anyway, there's a limit to how much we can draw this out, but it's as you say, curiosity is probably the best way to explain it. It's kind of a failing of what it was ported onto. It's kind of a concept that I don't think can work particularly well on the Game Boy.
At some point, someone has turned to like a small studio or a programmer somewhere and said, "We want you to make Alone in the Dark for the Game Boy Color," and that guy has had massive cojones, and he's gone, "I'm going to port the whole fucking game onto Game Boy," and he kind of did. So you have to admire that.
That's true.
But it doesn't look like a lot of fun, but he did it.
I think that's what we're saying. That's the biggest issue with it. As a straight up adventure game, it's kind of an enjoyable wee thing, but the combat and stuff just ruins it, and they obviously just couldn't have got it made without it.
It's like they squeeze the combat around the graphics.
But for the most part, it is 50% widescreen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is pretty seizure-inducing. But anyway, I think probably another one that's worth looking at after this is trying to get a hold of the Resident Evil port.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I'd be really interested.
I've never seen it.
I've played Gaiden, which is like an official port onto... Well, it's an official game, but it's fucking rubbish.
Well, that's a top-down...
Yeah.
It's like the combat sequences in this, isn't it? It's like a top-down... You're on a ship, aren't you?
Yeah. Can I draw your attention to the idle animation?
It very much looks... Is his hand in his pocket?
I think he's pumping a box.
But
either way, he's enjoying himself.
Is there not like a statue or something you could have him stand next to for the lulz?
Yeah, well, let's see what we can find. We're really finding the horror in this.
Maybe at this point we should just cut to black and then come back with him pumping a statue.
Just do it that way. I think that's pretty indicative of our level of quality. This is the kind of stuff. Now we've got a chest.
We could have like...
Oh, he was quite close to the camera there. You can see his soulless black eyes and mouth.
It looks like Jeff the Killer.
He looks very much like an alien, actually.
What is his right eye's getting bigger and smaller?
I also like that his left arm has got like some kind of unconscious wiggle to it, like it's partially possessed.
He's knocking out some sweet beats.
Nice. Oh well, I would certainly put it down as calling it an experience.
Yeah.
But I probably wouldn't say that it was something to rush out and buy unless you find it super cheap. But maybe download it and stick it in an emulator and see what you think, because it's certainly.
I think it is a curiosity and it's interesting to see. But to be honest, I'm quite happy to have sat here and watched you play it. Having watched you play it, I have no desire to rush out and play it again.
Well, that's a pretty good review.
Yeah.
Watch someone play it for 10 minutes, run out of bullets, die.
Basically, just refresh this video and just watch it again. If you feel like playing it, just watch Calum play it again, because you've pretty much played it.
I think that's fairly accurate. All right. Well, hopefully you guys you've got something out of it, and we'll be back again at some point. I've been Calum, and also he's been
Martin.
We've been Calum and Martin. Have a good evening.
Tra.
Or morning or afternoon. That's what the problem with online distribution, isn't it? Could be any time.
Could be after the end of the world. Could be year 2100.
I'd like to think that at the end of the world, that the only thing that survived isn't this review.
If you're watching this long after we're all dead, and you're just sitting watching this guy with his bulging right eye shaking about, hello.
Imagine they think this is what games are. Like, imagine this is the only thing that survives this review.
Unfortunately, one time this was what games were.
It's a sad thought.
It's a time capsule. We should bury this in the desert.
Let's do it. Right. Well, like they buried ET.
These games should be buried in the desert like ET. That's
it. Right.
Yeah.
We're waffling. Goodbye, everyone.